and welcome to Ocean of Light. I'm Wendy Azardigan. Thank you for joining us. Today I'm particularly delighted to welcome to our program Noushin Ehsan. Welcome to Adelaide, Noushin.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to your program.
Now, Noushin is a very distinguished architect. She studied architecture and also interior design and has a master's degree in architecture from the University of California. She also has been working as an associate professor at various universities around the globe. She's a professional lecturer and she specializes in the overview and supervision of a large multi-development, multi-living habitations in big cities. And I understand also that you have a great passion for the spirit of space. So Noushin, tell us a little about yourself.
I am an architect, as you mentioned, and also city planner. And I started my professional journey with interior design. So I remember when I was a young girl and I started with interior design, I wasn't delighted because all my life I wanted to be an architect. And but I did complete the 3 years program of interior design, and then I started architecture, and then I wanted to be city planner. And now that I completed all these 3 related journey, I am so much understanding that how every one of them are related to each other and connected, and no longer being interior designer it's small to me, because everything is important, as interior as well as exterior, as every element of environment that we design is as important as the whole. So I blend them all, and then after 37 years of practicing in various stage, different type of building and different scale of the building. I started with designing hotels, and then I went to high-rises, and then new towns, and then I went to governmental projects, and I have done, I sold my firm at the time that I was doing a lot of large-scale government project in New York City as well as different part of the world. Now I only do second opinion. And second opinion in the sense that evaluate other designer, how the other designers work, as how one can emphasize toward how a building or built environment, as we say in a technical way, it can influence human behavior, and how we can lead those design to produce sort of a more positive energy and uplift the human spirit. And that's the subject that I lecture internationally now, and is called the Spirit of a Space.
Do you think in the past that various urban planners and architects and people with money who wanted to make a profit building developments have actually create social problems by putting people into an environment where they just didn't have enough space to function?
Definitely. Any building that especially government built for as a council house or low-income housing, it's through lack of inspirational design, they move the society toward more dependency, and instead of making them independent and lift their up spirit and create either a community life among them, or at least give them strength that do something about their life, and so on and so forth. The monotoneness of the design, a lot of factors that I can go on and on and on in the failing of good design for those large scale, often council houses, has brought the society down, and definitely it's not the right approach for designing those scales for any society.
Yes, I always imagined that if you had to live on a low income and you had a choice of where to go, then living in a small village surrounded by farmland would be the ideal environment, because there you could actually be happy with a small house, because you've got beautiful surroundings, you've got places to go, things to do, and you can have a small local community and assist each other and grow veggies, and life could be good.
Of course, but not every society has this opportunity to have access to lands, larger piece of property that they can have people either build their houses or build it for them in a way that they all have garden, they all have access to neighborhood activities and so on and so forth. But because of that, I'm even now I'm living in last 30 years, I'm living in New York, and I'm examining this in a high-rises, that the reason, and prior to that I was in London and also the same, and in any other major city, Moscow, any of them, when they build series of tall houses and they need to have it in high-rise because of lack of a space, if they finish and given often this type of gray concrete block feeling, the buildings that feels like a prison, then we don't expect that community will protect their building, and the vandalism of those buildings are extreme because the building environment itself is not uplifting. But that doesn't mean they cannot be built in a way that they feel still create community among them, or individually they feel belonging to this place. In other words, the lack of belonging in those type of environment, it creates more problem than help. One of the simple way that you can increase the lack of belonging is that don't finish those houses and just make the skeleton, a structure, and then invite the people who wants to live in it with sweat equity that is just by, instead of giving them free, do work and finish their project, give them some seed money for material and so, and let them use their ingenuity to finish it with the finished material or color, or produce a personality that is almost to their need. It's all more unique, and that will help. And of course, what you said, villages and growing vegetable, and so that choice is not available to everybody today. Otherwise, those adobe houses, those community life in old days is something that we all have to keep it in our dream and love it. And if you do have that kind of environment, that you do have that kind of chance, again, if you give the seed money to those family and individual and allow them to build it for themselves, definitely will the end result would be extremely fantastic.
I'm thinking that if people who rent long term, you're not allowed to change a building that you're renting because it doesn't belong to you. So you spend your life in something that you can't individualize.
That's the problem, and that's what I'm saying, that instead of giving them rent free or rent with a minimum rent, allow them that they can do finish and change their environment by themselves, encourage them, as a matter of fact, that the sense of belonging helps them to save it and keep it, and avoid that much of a vandalism. However, I was just thinking of since the earthquake of Haiti, I, as a position that I'm involved as a chair of the global community, global committee at the American Institute of Architecture of New York, I invited the world architects to participate in not a competition, but a collaboration, and come up with a design that be responding to the need of Haitian, which they, for instance, the character, culture, and the needs of Haitian no matter how poor or needy they are, that they are right now in a tent, is still different than somebody in Africa, somebody in Asia, so on and so forth. And understanding their needs, come up with something that we can go and teach them and how to build it for themselves, and allow them to make some modification changes as they feel like. And that has become so successful, and many architects in the world participated, and we, through a very collaborative effort, we edited among over 170 designs that they sent us. We chose finally 12, and from that 12 we edited to last 3, which we now have positioned of going and teaching them to build that. But these 3 designs, as best we have been doing so far, is to understand what is it that they would enjoy, and they would not be dependent on the society outside to come and constantly help them. So number 1, they understood their cultural need, their character, their personality. Number 2, we allow them to build it themselves, and also teach them that if they come up with more elaborate ideas and so on and so forth, also go and build and help others to build. So there are many things that life is not only the building inside, is also your community and how you react, how if you don't have job, if you have no interaction with others, it's just still become miserable. And that's the goal that at least we have set up for ourselves, which we just don't give them a shelter that today protect them from the weather, but tomorrow will become another slum.
One of the things that I notice when you're living in small accommodation is that if you want to entertain or have a party, or you want all your friends and your relatives to come over, there's no space for it. You have to go outside.
Again, this become a, if you look at the Japanese home, for instance, that is very versatile. They can make one room, at least it used to be, and now they are keep changing, and they are becoming more and more involved with the Western life of a larger is better and so on and so forth. But those days that they really were more, they were more center, and I don't want to say they were more spiritual, but they were more centered. They were sort of accepting their root and culture. In those days, you would see those beautiful rooms or houses become in 1 minute place of meditation, another place, a minute place of eating, and another place, another moment play room and entertainment room, and eventually at the night all the sleeping sort of what you call futon and all of that would come out of the hidden corner and become a sleeping area.
So they would change the room by the accessories.
Absolutely, by elements, by accessories, by rhythm of the life changes and day changes, and that's use of a smaller space. Never.
It's interesting. You can only be in one room at a time.
But exactly. So that room can be all that function, and on top of it, you can have guests. I remember the day that I was invited to a Chinese family that the whole family were living in a house with 2 rooms. The whole family, the entire family. I'm talking about 1995, the same room that was living room, and a few chairs were around, and so by literally the coffee table became a dining table by turning around the leg of it in a way that became a standard of the height of the dining table, and our chair became higher up and it became a dining table, and so on and so forth. That room was so versatile that amazed me. And of course, now they are so much in luxury that the same family have, instead of 2 rooms for 6 people that they had, now they have a room, apartment that has 6 bedrooms. I mean, that's that's excessive. And I just by coincidence, I remember a day that I was in a conference in Shanghai when they were planning for housing for 2000, and they were talking about, the Minister of Housing were talking about billions and billions of greatest number that my head could not hold, and of square feet of a square meter of housing for need. And they were planning for each family have to have a apartment of 3-bedroom, and the family life over there is husband and wife and one child. And I got up and I said, first of all, the scale that you're talking about, it just doesn't even sit in my head, because I remember when I came from Iran, and my father, coming to New York, my father said, when you are in New York, don't wear hat, because your hat will fall off. Give me some scale that how tall is tall. Your number is beyond my capacity to hold. But I have a question. He said, what? How could you go from one room family for one family, go through 3 bedrooms for one family of 3? He said, we are watching your soap opera in United States, and we know that husband and wife have one bedroom, and one extra bedroom is when for the child, and the 3rd bedroom is for when husband and wife fight, they go to different room. I would laugh. I mean, they get the true soap opera of American, that the way of living is to have 3 bedroom and separation between husband and wife. So I don't know why I remember that, but that just there was something that if we don't understand and we don't encourage the people to accept their culture and gradually grow to change, there are going to be a lot of disharmony in society, and we architects have to be very aware of that we can, by sort of teasing them toward the happiness is this, pushing them towards some unhappiness. And that's not happiness to have a larger house. It's just have to be right for you, and that right, what it is another story that is beyond our table talk.
Yes, I was thinking also, you're talking about the soap opera, it showed everyone having an extra bedroom that husband and wife can use. There's an Australian soap opera which shows everybody going to the local cafe after work and after school. And all the time that I went to school, and I've been working, no one goes to a cafe after school. They go home.
It's very true, and this is, of course, we have to realize that the society now is going toward more leisure time and more the least family time, and family times are reduced.
But in television, they show them going to a cafe, to like a milk bar, because it's a good place to film TV programs. They can show other people coming in and have human beings interact with each other, and it makes for developing the plot well. So they place people in these environments because it's good for the scriptwriter. Otherwise, they would go home and they'd be home alone in their house, and there's nothing you could film that's interesting. So they create these artificial environments because they're useful for filming. And also they build houses which have one wall missing, so they can get all the cameras in there and the tripods and the film crew and the sound engineers to record the program. So they need big spaces for doing the filming. Which means that when we watch these programs on television, everyone looks like they're living in big spaces.
I can assure you that there are people who live in larger spaces and yet go to a cafe and places that interact because they feel lonely. And the loneliness, it has nothing to do with the luxury of their house or with the size of their house. It has to do with lack of spirituality of within themselves, and also the lack of a spirit in that environment that they live. There are some family that they live in small houses and small places, and they're so united, and they're so, by, for instance, family member, often mother, by putting one a rose in a vase and putting in a corner of the table, they're all gravitated into that corner, and there is a family moment, there are talk and among them, and so on and so forth. And yet there are some family who are living in larger spaces. Each one have his own room, and each one has, nobody talks to each other, and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying necessarily small is better or large is bad. I'm saying that the reason for need of going to cafe and being with others is lack of. As an architect, I talk about the lack of a spirit of their space, but as a psychologist, one has to talk about the lack of family unity and into individual spirituality and individual happiness, that the happiness never comes by neither money nor luxury nor any of these things. Is element that you have to be accepting yourself, accepting through your higher being. Be happy where I am and what I'm doing. And of course that goes on, as you and I understand. Baha'is do believe that this comes by doing a service. Service to humanity brings you joy. And as an architect, I put my emphasis of service to humanity through how I can build environment or buildings that are more uplifting and provide positive energy. And that's the focus I give. You as an engineer would have to do a service that people who are traveling through the railroad feel safe. And if we are loving our job and be happy with what you're doing, even though you are not recognized as a name because you are one of the behind the stage. But with your sweat, I feel safe, and if I'm safe, I will be happy. So all is related. That's all it's about. The society is not sort of one thing versus the others. That's the reason I started saying, when I became city planner, when I built several new towns, when I built 5,000 units of housing, now if I am putting this glass, my eyeglasses on the table, I'm conscious of how this affects to this little table, and how every movement of what I do, it can influence something else, and overall I'm putting my energy toward, is that create a more positive energy? Is that uplift you? If not, I would avoid it.
You must think a lot about these things all the time, because wherever you go and you travel, you meet people, of course, and you see the environments they live in. Yet, when we read about the life of Abdu'l-Baha and Baha'u'llah, who spent a lot of their time in the prison city of Akka, which was basically ugly and not spiritually uplifting, and surrounded by people who were very unhappy, yet they said that they were extremely happy there.
Absolutely.
Because they had so much opportunity to serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, again, beside service, let's go back to the physical environment. The garden, the purity of those gardens, the simplicity of it. Garden is so important. I walked in today to your home with that garden that was so natural, very unpretentious, and yet full of love. I was inspired, I was lifted, and yet I could go to a very formal and very sort of garden that everything has been done by order and form and down, right, left, and I don't feel that uplifted. There are, I remember when you said Bahji, Abdu'l-Baha, Baha'u'llah, that garden of Rizwan, how much we can learn from that simple little fountain of water with that simple environment, that kind of a shade, that kind of a seat. None of them are pretentious, and every element of it, forever you remember it. Not only because Baha'u'llah or Abdul Baha were sitting here. Believe me, you can go to a garden of some friends. As I said, I came to your house and I felt that uplifted. And yet you can go to a very, very beautiful gardens or houses or in cities or so that you don't feel that. The cities that are inviting you are the one who people are happy and have done their service in every element of it, in pure wish of giving service to humanity. I am just hitting your camera, meaning that is perhaps is end of my talk.
Oh, Noushin, this has been very interesting, but I'm afraid we have run out of time. So I'll have to thank you very much for coming on our program. It's been a delight to meet you.
Thank you for inviting me. It was really delightful for me to meet you and be part of your very creative program. Thanks.
I'm Wendy Azadigan, and we've been talking with Noushin Ehsan, an adjunct professor of architecture and urban planner. You've been watching Ocean of Light. Thank you for joining us, and please join us again at the same time next week.